September 1, 1939, the dawn of war at Krojanty. The sun barely crests the horizon on September 1, 1939, casting a pale golden haze over the rolling fields near Krojanty, Poland. Dew clings to the grass, and a faint mist swirls around the hooves of horses as the 18th Pomeranian Uhlan Regiment moves into position. Captain Eugeniusz Świeszczak, his breath visible in the chill morning air, adjusts his saber and scans the tree line. His men, 250 strong, sit tall in their saddles, lances gleaming, their mounts snorting softly. The distant rumble of engines, a low, unnatural growl, cuts through the dawn's quiet. Świeszczak's pulse quickens. The Germans are coming. You can almost feel the tension, the weight of history pressing down on these men. They've heard the reports. German panzers crossing the border at dawn, Luftwaffe bombers screaming overhead, villages burning. Poland's western frontier is collapsing under Hitler's war machine. But here, in this quiet corner of Pomerania, Świeszczak's cavalry is tasked with holding the line. Their orders are simple: delay the enemy's advance, buy time for the Polish infantry to retreat toward the Vistula River. The men grip their reins tighter, their Mauser carbines slung across their backs, unaware they're about to become a footnote in a new kind of war. The first German scouts appear, gray-clad infantrymen of the 20th Motorized Infantry Division, moving cautiously through the trees. Świeszczak raises his hand, signaling his squadrons to ready themselves. The Uhlans, trained for mobility and shock, know their strength lies in speed. At 0800 hours, the captain lowers his arm, and the Polish cavalry surges forward, hooves thundering across the open field. Lances dip, sabers flash, and the men let out a roar that echoes over the plain. The German infantry, caught off guard, scramble for cover, their rifles cracking in disorganized bursts. The charge is a spectacle, horses at full gallop, riders leaning low, the ground trembling beneath them. For a moment, it's as if time has reversed, a scene from a bygone era. But the illusion shatters when German machine guns open fire. MG-34s spit lead, tearing through flesh and hide. Uhlans fall, horses scream, and the charge falters. Świeszczak, his face streaked with dirt, shouts for his men to press the attack, but the momentum is gone. The Germans, now reinforced, bring up armored cars, lightly armored Sadikikevzed 221s, their 7.92 mm guns blazing. The Uhlans wheel their horses, retreating under fire, leaving behind a field littered with the fallen. By mid-morning, the clash at Krojanty is over. 25 Polish cavalrymen lie dead, including Lieutenant Colonel Kazimierz Mastelers, Świeszczak's commander. The Germans, shaken but regrouping, resume their advance. The Uhlans' charge, though brave, barely slows the enemy. Yet this fleeting moment will soon be twisted by propaganda. Goebbels' machine will spin tales of Polish horsemen foolishly charging tanks, a myth to mock Poland's resistance. But the truth is sharper. The speed and violence of this encounter reveal something new. The Germans aren't just fighting, they're unleashing a storm of steel and fire, a tactic that will soon be called Blitzkrieg. The sun climbs higher over Krojanty, its light now harsh, glinting off the blood-streaked grass where the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans made their stand. Captain Eugeniusz Świeszczak rallies his surviving men in a copse of birch trees, their horses panting, foam dripping from their bits. The air smells of gunpowder and torn earth. Świeszczak's face is grim as he listens to the distant roar of engines growing louder. German panzers, likely Panzer IIs and IIIs, their treads chewing through the Polish countryside. The clash at Krojanty was just a spark. Now, the full inferno of Germany's invasion surges forward. Picture yourself standing among the Uhlans, the ground vibrating beneath your boots, as the first German tanks break through the tree line, their turrets swiveling like predators. These are no mere armored cars now. The 2nd Panzer Division, spearheading the German 19th Army Corps under General Heinz Guderian, rolls in with ruthless precision. The Panzer IIs, light but nimble, churn up clouds of dust, their 20mm cannons barking. Behind them, Stuka dive bombers scream overhead, their sirens, dubbed Jericho trumpets, shattering the nerves of Polish defenders. The Uhlans, armed with lances and carbines, can only watch as the mechanized tide surges past, heading for the heart of Poland. Guderian, a wiry man with a mind as sharp as his tank's tracks, watches from a command vehicle, his field glasses trained on the horizon. He spent years theorizing this moment. Blitzkrieg, the lightning war, where tanks, infantry, and air support move as one, striking fast and deep, bypassing strong points to sow chaos. Krojanty, though a minor skirmish, confirms his gamble. No traditional army, not even Poland's spirited cavalry, can withstand this coordinated onslaught. By noon, German radio operators are already relaying reports of Polish units in disarray, their lines of communication severed, their commanders scrambling to respond. The Polish infantry, meant to reinforce the sector, never arrives. Instead, Schwestjak's men hear panicked transmissions. Chu has fallen, Danzig is under siege, and Luftwaffe bombs are leveling Warsaw's outskirts. The Uhlans, now reduced to fewer than 200, mount a desperate rearguard action, harrying German supply lines with hit-and-run raids. Private Jan Kowalski, a young trooper with sweat-streaked cheeks, fires his Mauser from behind a low stone wall, his shots pinging uselessly off a panzer's armor. Beside him, Sergeant Władysław Nowak hurls a Molotov cocktail, the bottle shattering in a fleeting burst of flame. It's brave, but futile. The Germans keep coming. By dusk, the fields around Krojanty are a graveyard of horses and men, the air thick with the acrid smoke of burning vehicles. The Germans don't pause to celebrate. Their tanks press on, followed by motorized infantry and half-tracks, their engines roaring into the twilight. Schwestjak, his uniform torn and his saber lost, leads his men south, hoping to link up with the retreating Polish army of Pomors. But the speed of the German advance is relentless, cutting off escape routes, encircling entire divisions. In Berlin, Hitler's generals take note. Blitzkrieg isn't just a tactic, it's a revolution. Poland is crumbling and Europe is next. The twilight of September 1st, 1939, casts long shadows over the Polish countryside as Captain Eugeniusz Schwestjak leads his battered Uhlans south, their horses stumbling through churned fields near the Vistula River. The air is heavy with the stench of smoke and diesel, and the distant thump of artillery echoes like a heartbeat. Schwestjak's men, their faces gaunt with exhaustion, clutch their rifles, eyes darting to the horizon where German panzers prowl. The clash at Krojanty is already a memory, but its echoes are about to be twisted into a lie that will haunt Poland's resistance. Imagine standing in the chaos, the crunch of boots on gravel, the panicked whinny of a wounded horse. The Uhlans are no longer a fighting force but a ragged band, dodging German reconnaissance planes that buzz overhead like vultures. Schwestjak, his voice hoarse, urges his men to keep moving, but the German advance is relentless. By nightfall, reports filter through. The Polish 9th Infantry Division, meant to hold the line at Tukola Forest, is shattered. Guderian's tanks have punched through, their radios crackling with orders to encircle. The Uhlans' charge at Krojanty, meant to buy time, has been swallowed by the speed of Blitzkrieg. In Berlin, the German propaganda machine seizes the moment. Joseph Goebbels, his pen as sharp as any panzer's cannon, receives exaggerated reports from the front. Polish cavalry, they claim, charged tanks with lances, a suicidal act of backward bravado. It's a half-truth. The Uhlans faced armored cars, not tanks, but Goebbels doesn't care. By September 2nd, German radio broadcasts mock Poland's foolish horsemen, painting them as relics of a bygone age, outmatched by the Reich's modern war machine. Newspapers in Berlin and Munich run lurid headlines, and soon the myth spreads to neutral countries where foreign correspondents, hungry for drama, amplify the story. Back in Poland, the reality is grimmer. Private Jan Kowalski, his hands blistered from gripping his Mauser, crouches in a ditch as German Stukas dive bomb a nearby village, their bombs sending plumes of fire into the night sky. Sergeant Władysław Nowak, blood seeping through a bandage on his arm, whispers of rumors. Entire Polish units are surrendering, cut off by German spearheads. The Uhlans hear of the fall of Bydgoszcz, of Luftwaffe raids turning rail lines to rubble. The Polish High Command, scrambling in Warsaw, can't keep up with the enemy's pace. Blitzkrieg isn't just fast, it's disorienting, a storm that leaves defenders grasping at shadows. Świeżak's men, now barely 100, reach a shattered hamlet by midnight. A farmer, his face lined with fear, offers them bread and water, whispering of German columns just miles away. The captain's radio crackles with static, no orders, no reinforcements. The Uhlans' charge at Krojanty, though tactically insignificant, has revealed a brutal truth. Germany's generals, watching from their command posts, see Poland's collapse as proof. Blitzkrieg can break armies, nations, even spirits. In Berlin, Hitler paces, his eyes gleaming with visions of Europe under his boot. For Poland, the war is only beginning, but the world is already learning the name of Germany's lightning war. The night of September 2nd, 1939, cloaks the Polish hamlet where Captain Eugeniusz Świeżak's Uhlans huddle, their breath fogging in the cool air. The flicker of a single oil lamp casts shadows on the barn's rough walls, where the men rest, their horses tied outside, noses buried in sparse oats. Świeżak, his eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness, pores over a tattered map by the dim light, plotting a path to join the retreating Polish army of Pomorze. The distant boom of German artillery rolls like thunder, a reminder that the enemy is closing in. Krojanty's brief stand is now a fading echo, but the German juggernaut surges on, its lessons reshaping the war. Feel the weight of exhaustion in that barn, the creak of leather saddles, the low murmurs of men whispering about home. Private Jan Kowalski cleans his Mauser, his fingers trembling, while Sergeant Władysław Nowak binds a fresh wound with a torn strip of cloth. The Uhlans are down to 90 men, their lances abandoned, their sabers useless against the steel beasts roaring across Poland. Outside, the sky flares with the glow of burning villages, and the drone of Luftwaffe planes hums overhead. The Germans aren't just advancing, they're everywhere, their panzer divisions slicing through Polish lines like a blade through cloth. By dawn, Świeżak's scouts report grim news. The German 2nd Panzer Division, backed by motorized infantry, has cut the road to Torun. Guderian's tactics are relentless. Tanks strike deep, bypassing fortified positions, while Stukas pound anything that moves. The Polish 16th Infantry Division, meant to link up with the Uhlans, is encircled in the Bzura River pocket, fighting for survival. Świeżak's men mount up, their horses gaunt, and move south under cover of dawn's mist, dodging German patrols. Every hoofbeat feels like a gamble, every shadow a potential ambush. The Uhlans skirt a ravaged wheat field when they spot a German column, half-tracks and trucks, escorted by a pair of Panzer IIIs, their 37mm guns glinting. Świeżak signals a halt, his men dismounting silently. Kowalski, peering through binoculars, counts the enemy, at least 200 infantry, their field-gray uniforms stark against the green. The captain considers a raid, but knows it's suicide. Instead, he orders his men to melt into the forest, their horses led by hand through dense underbrush. It's a bitter choice, but survival now means retreat, not resistance. In Warsaw, Polish commanders grapple with the unraveling front. Radio reports paint a dire picture. The German Fourth Army is closing on Łódź, the 10th Army driving toward Krakow. Blitzkrieg's speed, tanks moving 20 miles a day, supported by airstrikes, has shattered Poland's defenses. The Uhlans' charge at Krojanty, already distorted by German propaganda, fades into irrelevance as the nation buckles. Yet in Berlin, Hitler's generals, poring over maps in smoke-filled rooms, see the bigger picture. Poland's collapse proves Blitzkrieg's power, a blueprint for conquest. Guderian, his voice calm but triumphant, cables Berlin. The enemy is broken. For Świeżak and his men, the fight continues, but the war's momentum has shifted, and Europe will soon feel the storm. The morning of September 3, 1939, finds Captain Eugeniusz Świeżak's Uhlans threading through a dense pine forest south of the Vistula River, their horses stepping softly over needle-strewn earth. The air is sharp with resin and smoke, the latter drifting from a burning town to the north. Świeżak, his face etched with strain, rides at the head of his dwindling column. Barely 80 men remain, their uniforms torn, their eyes hollow. The clash at Krojanty feels like a lifetime ago, its brief heroism buried under the relentless advance of Germany's Blitzkrieg. The Uhlans are fugitives now, hunted by an enemy that moves faster than hope. You're there in the forest, the damp chill seeping through your clothes, the faint jingle of bridles the only sound besides the men's labored breathing. Private Jan Kowalski, his Mauser slung over his shoulder, glances nervously at the sky, dreading the whine of Stuka dive bombers. Sergeant Władysław Nowak, limping from a shrapnel wound, grips his horse's reins, his jaw set against the pain. The Uhlans are low on ammunition, their canteens nearly empty, but Świeżak's orders are clear. Reach the Polish lines near Warsaw, if such lines still exist. The men cling to rumors of a counter-offensive, a flicker of defiance against the German tide. The forest thins, and Świeżak halts the column near a muddy stream. A scout, Corporal Stefan Zielinski, returns breathless, his face pale. A German panzer column, likely from the 1st Panzer Division, is crossing a bridge 2 miles east, their treads grinding, their radios crackling with clipped commands. Świeżak's men are too weak to fight, but retreat means abandoning their mission. The captain, his voice low, decides on a final act, a sabotage raid to slow the enemy. The Uhlans dismount, tying their horses to trees, and creep toward the bridge under cover of dawn's gray light. The scene is desperate. Kowalski and Nowak, clutching Molotov cocktails and a few grenades, crawl through reeds along the riverbank. The German column, oblivious, rumbles closer. 3 Panzer IIs, a dozen trucks, and a company of infantry. Świeżak signals, and the Uhlans strike. Grenades arc through the air, exploding against a truck's fuel tank in a roar of flame. Nowak hurls a Molotov, setting a half-track ablaze, while Kowalski's rifle cracks, dropping a German sentry. The Panzers return fire, their 20mm cannons shredding the underbrush. The Uhlans scatter, but not before losing 10 men, their bodies crumpling into the mud. The raid buys hours, not days. By noon, Świeżak's survivors, now fewer than 70, flee deeper into the forest, pursued by German motorized patrols. Warsaw is still 100 miles away, but the Polish defense is collapsing. Radio reports, patchy and frantic, speak of the capital under siege, Luftwaffe bombs raining on civilians. The Uhlans' stand, like Krojanty's charge, is a gesture of defiance, but Blitzkrieg's lesson is clear. No courage can match Germany's mechanized fury. In Berlin, Hitler's generals plot their next moves, France, the Low Countries, Europe itself, while Świeżak's men, battered but unbroken, march on, their war far from over. The afternoon of September 4, 1939, drapes a heavy gray over the Polish forest, where Captain Eugeniusz Świeżak's Uhlans limp onward, their numbers now a mere 65. The air is thick with the scent of pine and the distant reek of burning villages. Świeżak, his uniform caked with mud, rides at the head, his eyes scanning for German patrols. The sabotage at the bridge bought a fleeting reprieve, but the German war machine grinds closer, its panzers and Stukas leaving a trail of wreckage across Poland. The charge at Krojanty, now a distant memory, has been eclipsed by the relentless reality of Blitzkrieg, a force that has rewritten the rules of war. You're with them, feeling the ache in your legs, the weight of hunger gnawing at your gut. Private Jan Kowalski, his face smudged with soot, clutches his Mauser, its last clip half empty. Sergeant Władysław Nowak, his wound festering, leans heavily on his horse, muttering prayers under his breath. The Uhlans move in silence, their horses skeletal, their spirits frayed. Warsaw is their goal, but the horizon offers no hope, only plumes of smoke and the faint rumble of artillery. The Polish army is unraveling, its divisions encircled, its communications severed by the German onslaught. By dusk, the Uhlans reach a ravaged village, its wooden houses reduced to smoldering timbers. A handful of civilians, eyes wide with fear, huddle in a cellar, offering the soldiers stale bread and a bucket of brackish water. Świeszczak listens to a crackling radio. Warsaw is under heavy bombardment. The Polish government is evacuating, and the army of Pomorze is shattered. The Germans, led by General Heinz Guderian's 9th Army Corps, have crossed the Vistula in multiple sectors, their tanks moving at a pace no one anticipated, 30 miles a day, sometimes more. The Uhlans' raids, their courage, are drops in a flood. Świeszczak gathers his men, his voice steady despite the despair. "We fight for Poland," he says, "even if it's our last." The Uhlans, faces gaunt but resolute, nod. They mount up for one final push, aiming to harass a German supply line spotted by a scout. Under cover of night, they strike. Kowalski and Nowak lob their last grenades at a convoy of trucks, setting one ablaze. The Germans, caught off guard, return fire with MG-34s, cutting down a dozen Uhlans. Świeszczak, blood streaming from a bullet graze, orders a retreat, but the survivors are scattered, their horses bolting into the dark. By September 5th, Poland's resistance is crumbling. The Uhlans, now fewer than 50, dissolve into the countryside, some joining guerrilla bands, others captured or killed. In Berlin, Hitler's generals toast their victory, the fall of Poland proof that Blitzkrieg can conquer nations in weeks. The myth of Krojanty's cavalry charge, spun into propaganda, masks the truth. Germany's lightning war has shattered an army, a country, and the world's illusions about modern warfare. Świeszczak, if he survives, carries the weight of a lost cause, but his men's defiance, brief, brave, and futile, marks the opening chapter of a war